Hello and welcome to yet another edition of the PoliGraph. I, Snehesh Alex Philip, have with me our political expert, who's also the political editor of ThePrint, DK Singh. And today we are going to discuss a very important issue. And it's revolved around Jammu and Kashmir. And the issue that has been discussed today is what's at stake for the BJP and this Gupkar gang in J&K district elections. What does it mean? What is the way forward? What does the center have to say? And what is the situation on the ground as far as Jammu and Kashmir is concerned? So please do send us your questions. We will be taking live questions during this. We'll try and answer as much questions as possible. So please do send in your questions. Sticky, the first, of course, the big question that we're asking is, what is at stake for the BJP?
The DDC election. Before I come to that, let me tell our viewers, I have drawn Snehesh in this debate because I'm sure you'll be very curious about what is happening on the border, on the security front. He's our defense expert. He's constantly updated. He'll fill all the questions related to security aspects. I'll basically deal with the political aspect of it. Coming to the DDC elections, District Development Council elections. As you must be aware, only last month this new unit of governance was created in Jammu and Kashmir. Now DDCs, why they are going to be important is through that amendment in the J&K Panchayati Raj Act, the center has decided to have elected representatives in the DDC, that is District Development Councils. Now before DDCs, J&K used to have District Development and Planning and Development Boards. But that board was headed by a cabinet minister, and then you will have MLAs and all. Now you are going to have elected representatives. So in every district, you will have 14 constituencies, which will elect 14 members. So you will have the DDC, each DDC will have 14 members. Now DDCs will basically decide or the plan all the schemes, whatever central schemes or any other agency has any scheme for that particular district or for the state. The DDC will do the planning, which was earlier done by the DDB. But DDB was also not doing that exactly. It was the district administration, DC, who would prepare the plan, and then DDBs would just approve it. Now DDCs would do the planning and also the capital expenditure. So they become very powerful. Whenever you have MLAs in J&K again, after the delimitation exercise, whenever elections are held, you have MLAs again. These DDCs will remain very powerful because they will be actually doing all the development works, rolling out all the welfare schemes in those districts. So those DDC representatives, DDC members, will have the real lever of power. Coming to the political part of it, as Snehesh just discussed, actually what is happening there on this, the politics happening on DDC elections is a bit unfortunate because we see all parties playing cynical politics. Now we heard what Home Minister Amit Shah had to say. Now he is calling the group of 7 regional parties which have formed this People's Alliance for Gupkar Declaration, PAGD. He calls them Gupkar gang, which wants to take Kashmir back to the era of turmoil and terrorism, and it wants the foreign forces to come and intervene. Now he must have spoken in the context of what Farooq Abdullah had earlier talked about, when he said that probably if China should come in. China will be actually restoring the 370 as it was. So that was very unfortunate statement by Farooq Abdullah. But that was a political rhetoric. For the Home Minister of the country to say that the Gupkar gang is, to call the conglomerate of political parties a Gupkar gang, which is out there to basically disrupt things, is a bit unfortunate because I think Amit Shah should have taken credit for the PAGD or for these regional parties to participate in this election. Because if you recall, right after the revocation of Article 370, all these leaders were put behind bars. And generally what you heard from these political parties there was that we are not going to contest elections until 370 is restored. Now these people are back or probably forced to participate in the electoral process because they do not want to give a free walk to the BJP there in the elections, and they do not want the BJP leaders, the BJP appointees there as part of the DDC who would be in charge of all their schemes and doing all the expenditures. So that would have empowered the BJP. So, but if these people are participating in this process, you should welcome that. Actually, it legitimizes your claim that things are getting back to normal. That was the first step towards normalcy, I would say, because you have got the local political stakeholders back in elections.
Back in elections.
By dismissing them, I think you aren't really doing justice to your own claim, actually, that things are getting back into normal.
So in a way, while these parties, the NC and the PDP and others had claimed that they would not take part in elections until the restoration of the Article 370, the special status.
And Omar Abdullah said that he will not contest election until statehood is
statehood is restored.
Yeah.
So, these parties changing the stand, which, I believe is a welcome step. Changing the stand, fighting is the BJP unnerved by it? Was the BJP expecting a walkover, then capturing these
Yes,
elections?
BJP was exactly expecting that walkover because it was a stated line of these parties. Now, I'm just talking about Omar Abdullah first, that until a statehood is restored, I'm not going to contest elections. These parties were also very iffy because they thought that if they participate in the electoral process, it would further erode their credibility given the anger on the ground. Now they have been forced to participate because, in the 20 districts, forget the 10 districts of Jammu, 10 districts in the valley, if you have the elected representatives rolling out development works, gradually you gain the confidence of the people.
Exactly.
And these parties did not want the BJP to get that walkover. So they were forced to participate.
Okay. So viewers, do send in your questions. I'll take maximum questions as possible. And I have a question coming in from Chitra Bhaskar DK, and this is something that I also wanted to ask. Amit Shah, while he made this statement calling the Gupkar gang, he had also said the Congress should clarify whether it is, signatory to it. So the question by Chitra Bhaskar is Congress a signatory to Gupkar declaration? What is the current stance of the Congress in it?
To state the facts, yes, Congress is signatory to Gupkar declaration, but that declaration was signed on the 4th of August last year, a day before the revocation of Article 370. So all these leaders, Gupkar declaration we call because all these parties had met at Farooq Abdullah's residence on Gupkar Road in Srinagar. So that's why it's called Gupkar declaration.
And Gupkar Road, viewers, is a very, it's a very posh locality in Kashmir. That's where all the top people, the rich, the mighty and the powerful stay in Kashmir.
Yeah, so that's how this name Gupkar declaration came. And the thrust of the declaration was there was no clarity from the center and there was apprehension all over that probably 370 was going to be revoked, or at least the 35A was going to be waived off, revoked. So Gupkar declaration was supposed to put pressure on the center that okay, we are all together, nothing should be done to Article 370. And Congress was a signatory to that. What the Congress is saying now, that it is not a part of the PAGD, that is People's Alliance for the Gupkar declaration. Now PAGD came into existence only a few weeks back. Once all these senior NC leaders and PDP leaders, they were out of their detention, they came together again, they formed an alliance. The alliance has 7 parties. You have National Conference, PDP, you have People's Conference, you have CPM. So 7 regional parties actually have come together to demand the restoration of the special status of Jammu and Kashmir. Congress did not attend a single meeting from the beginning. So when Congress is saying it is not part of PAGD, Congress is correct, but it is a signatory to the Gupkar declaration, which was actually drafted on the 4th of August last year. But sadly, Congress is again playing a very cynical politics. Cynical politics in the sense it's not very clear what it wants to do or what its stand is on Article 370. You must have seen the way the Congress has dealt with this issue. In Parliament, they opposed it. They opposed it tooth and nail, then staged a walkout. After that, they have been questioning the way this revocation was done, how the special status was revoked. But the Congress has never categorically demanded that this should be restored. former Home and Finance Minister P. Chidambaram did demand this, saying that that was the spirit of this Congress Working Committee resolution about this.
Okay.
That what was done was unconstitutional.
Yeah.
But then the party has formally never said that it wants a restoration of Article 370. Now, on the one hand, you are condemning the government, condemning the BJP for revoking it, but you do not want its restoration either. On PAGD, you are signatory to the Gupkar Declaration, but you do not want to be seen as being part of the People's Alliance for Gupkar Declaration. So, as usual now, the Congress looks very confused.
So, DK, is Congress taking part in these elections?
Yes, Congress is taking part.
But separately, not as part of the...
Initially, there was this chance that Congress would be having some tacit understanding with the National Conference, but National Conference has finally denied now that we are not going to have any alliance with the Congress, because what Congress was doing, see, right now nominations have taken place only for the first 2 phases. Now, DDC elections are going to happen in 3 phases. First is on November 28th, the last is on December 19th, and December 22nd you will have the regions. So, in the first 2 phases, the Congress also started filing nominations where other parties were doing that. The PAGD was doing. So, Congress was already fielding separate candidates.
Okay.
But there was this understanding that it would be having a tacit, if not very clear,
it's not really open
understanding with the PAGD. But now things are out in the open. There is not going to be any alliance.
So, DK, I have this question from Dev Verma, and he's asking, are these elections really credible given the amount of power center currently has in the newly formed union territory?
See, some time back we had this, actually last year only, you had this Block Development Council elections.
Yeah.
That was not a direct election because you had panches and sarpanches who actually voted in that election.
Yeah.
So, it was not a direct one, and you could not claim credit for the turnout or, or vote share of any party for that matter. In this election, people are directly participating, and we will see how much the turnout is. We can just hope that turnout is good.
Absolutely.
But that does give legitimacy to the DDCs because they will be directly elected, and that this will be the first election where people will be directly participating in it. And given that regional parties are also part of it, they have their own cadres on the ground, there will be participation. We just hope that it's good and pretty decent turnout. We just hope that.
DK, last month I was traveling through Kashmir, the south and the north Kashmir, and we used to have interactions with the army, the police, and wherever we went, there used to be local villagers who used to come, to talk to me and all. And one of the things which surprised me was the fact that these officers tell me that many times villagers come to them, talk to them, and say that they are from the BJP, hoping that their political alliance, their political influence will help in gaining some sort of work with the forces there. So, has the BJP silently, and there has been increasing attack on BJP workers in Kashmir also. So, in a way, has BJP increased its influence in Kashmir?
No, only marginally, insignificantly, I would say. Because
insignificantly.
On the ground, of course, there was a lot of resentment post August 2019, August 5, 2019. So to have villagers coming out and saying we belong to the BJP, it's very difficult because I was also in Kashmir, I was traveling in rural areas.
Yeah.
And I would go and try to meet these so-called BJP office bearers at least. They would be all trenched in a way, heavily guarded, they won't move out of fear actually.
Yeah.
So they will be hiding away from the people. I met one minority Morcha chief.
The BJP's minority Morcha chief.
In that region, who was not even able to go to see even his wife who had undergone surgery in the hospital. He was so scared. I don't know how much things have changed on the ground, but last time I was there a few months back, there was a lot of resentment. But that resentment was equally against the regional parties as well, because people thought they had been cheated by them. In the past, you had National Conference allying with the BJP, then PDP allying with the BJP. So national parties, among the regional parties, there was total alienation out. So they were totally alienated from the regional parties. And national party, BJP, did not have much presence. If you remember, after the 2018 polls for panches and sarpanches, if you go to Srinagar today, you will see in the hotels, all the panches and sarpanches are holed up.
Yeah.
They contested, but and PDP and NC had given a boycott call. They contested, but even now they do not have the guts to go out in the village and work for the welfare of the people. So to say that they have got legitimacy now and you have any significant section of people supporting the BJP would be
That's not wrong. That's wrong.
Yeah.
In a sense. Okay. I have a question coming in from Kish Vikram. He's asking, shouldn't Congress leave to state leadership rather than messing up the narrative?
No, see, Kashmir, as you know, Kashmir has this, whatever happens in Kashmir will have resonance across the country. So if you leave the state leadership to take calls under compulsions of the local factors, your national narrative will be actually affected. Now suppose the state Congress cannot categorically say that it is in favor of the restoration of, in favor of the revocation of Article 370.
Yeah.
Going by the local sentiments, the state Congress will be compelled to take a line that the PDP and the NCP have taken. But it's a different situation for the National Congress. Now, National Congress cannot take that line. So it's a bit of a tight spot that Congress is in.
Okay. I have a question coming in from Parimal. Actually, the question is for both of us. And he says, Mr. Snehesh as a security expert and Mr. Singh as a political analyst, do you think Kashmir can be solved in 10 to 15 years? Do you get the question first?
Politically, very difficult. We saw until about a few years back, the voter turnout in Kashmir, the last assembly election, I think voter turnout was about above 50%, if I recall it right. But it was a very healthy turnout. Things were getting back to normal as far as people's participation in the electoral process is concerned. And I'm sure if DDC polls go smoothly and you have elected representatives and then post-delimitation sometime next year or later, statehood is restored, it had its own assembly, and then you have elected representatives there, so this normalcy will gradually be back. How long it will take, I'm not sure, but well, DDC polls will be the first indicator somehow. But as for but major issue is the security front. How it will pan out, I think Snehesh should be able to tell you whether we should be looking at a window of 10 years, 15 years. It's very difficult to say for me.
But, I've always maintained, Parimal, that Kashmir is not a security issue. Kashmir has larger ramification to it. The security forces in Kashmir are there for tactical operations. Now, whenever the level of the law and order deteriorates, or whenever the level of violence, that is terrorism, goes up in Kashmir, the security forces' job is to counter this terrorism and bring it down to a certain level at a manageable level, which then enables the political forces to step in. Now, in the past also, what has happened is that there have been a number of opportunities where the level of violence had come down. However, the political class never could really step in and make use of that advantage. So it has to be a combination of the security, the political as well as the civil administration that have to come together and sincerely work towards resolving Kashmir, because anything that Kashmir cannot be seen through the prism of politics of India.
And this is where I differ with the BJP. Look, when Amit Shah is speaking, he is not speaking as a former BJP president or the chief BJP strategist.
Yeah.
When he speaks, it's the Home Minister of India who is talking. And the message goes that, okay, it's the government of India's stand. That's why I think the BJP leaders, especially those who are in the government, should not indulge in political rhetoric when it comes
Absolutely.
to Kashmir. And this is a strategy of alienating the regional parties. You don't recognize them, you are dismissive of them, will not work, because for Kashmir to basically have faith in a national party now, or the BJP, it will take a long time. The healing process has to start, and you have to have regional stakeholders on board, whether you like them ideologically or not, whether you have strong reservations against the way they ruled Jammu and Kashmir earlier, that's a different thing. But you have to give them legitimacy, because to give them legitimacy, because what is happening, what we witnessed in Kashmir, is there was massive resentment against the local political leaders.
The NC and the PDP.
NC and the PDP, they do not want to see them, because they see them as having been instrumental in enabling the BJP to basically revoke it.
Yeah.
First you ally with the BJP and then BJP does, you have president's rule and then it happens. You further discredit these parties, then there is total political vacuum because the Congress is there but not that much. BJP is hardly there in the valley. There will be total political vacuum. And as Snehesh says, it's not a security issue. You have to have the people in confidence. And for that, you need to prop up the local political leadership. And you cannot be just dismissive of NC or the PDP, regardless of what they did in the past. You need an alternative political leadership to emerge if you want. If you do not want NC or the PDP to emerge, you have to go for alternative political leadership. But sadly, so far you do not have any alternative. You have J&K Apni party, which may be a bit more in sync with the national mood, but then it hardly has any presence. So it will take a long time. Alternative political leadership does not emerge overnight.
And the members of this Apni party are from the PDP and NC only itself, right? So, I have a question coming in from Tanveer Pajwani, and he's asking, what's the fact or the ground wherein the Gupkar alliance candidates not allowed to canvass for their candidates? I think this is regard to reports that came in that
yes, Ajhan Javed also reported from our correspondent in Srinagar. He reported yesterday. Then I think some other papers also have it today, that candidates are not being allowed to campaign. I'm not familiar with the ground situation because there may be a real security threat. Because when you have so much resentment on the ground, to expect candidates to go out and campaign, I'm not sure. They have to be given security. So I will not take any call on this, whether the center is wrong in providing them full security cover and bringing them back to the hotel, unless it's being forced upon those candidates.
I think we will get back to you on this question because it's something that I have also not looked into it. As DK mentioned, our colleague Azan Javed has reported from Srinagar yesterday that yes, the Gupkar candidates have actually alleged.
It's the same for the BJP candidates also. As I mentioned, all BJP's panches and sarpanches aligned with the BJP, they have been holed up in Srinagar hotels and guest houses for the last couple of years because they cannot go out. To expect that, okay, let even Gupkar or PAGD candidates go out and campaign without fear of any violence.
Yeah. And this is also not just the fear of the people's sentiments. I think it also has to do with the fact that there is the terrorists who are active in Jammu and Kashmir. Now, viewers, if you do recall that the Home Ministry has now sent in additional battalions of the Central Armed Police Forces. Now, they were sent in also before the August 5 last year, August 5 when the abrogation happened, and they were withdrawn later with the situation stabilizing. Now, with the elections in, because security continues to be one of the primary concerns, additional troops, soldiers have been deployed and are being sent to Jammu and Kashmir.
Look, there is a real threat because militants would not like this electoral process to go smoothly.
Yeah. It's a defeat for them if it happens.
Real threat of violence if it goes smoothly. So I would back the center on this if the center is providing security to its candidates.
Yeah.
Well, PAGD making allegations, you expect this political rhetoric to happen. They will speak. But if some violence happens, some candidate is killed, God forbid, then again the center will be blamed for this.
And I'm sure even the candidates themselves would not like to go out, step out,
exactly,
and campaign without any security there. And that is and security continues to be a real worry. I have a question from Javed Dar Saab, sorry, and he's asking, doesn't Gupkar alliance harm Congress at large as it is part of an alliance now? I think DK has already answered this question little earlier, when he said that, while Congress is part of the Gupkar declaration that was done last year, in August last year, it is not part of the alliance, the Gupkar alliance, which is fighting the elections.
And as for its alliance with regional parties concerned, like in other parts of the country, the Congress has been, over the decades actually, has got totally marginalized in the valley also, both in Jammu and in the valley. And the party has been trying to piggyback on either the NC or the PDP to get back into power. So that's the situation as it is.
Well, I have a question coming in from Tanmay Surya. I think it's surprising that many of the questions are focusing on Congress, and including this by Tanmay Surya. And he's asking, why does Congress not have a clear stand on Article 370? Will this affect their position in district and legislative elections going ahead?
It may. First of all, when you coming to the first point, why is it not clear? We have been discussing it very often. Congress is going through this crisis of conviction, and I would say ideological conviction. Now, if you believe that Article 370 had to be there, say so. If you believe that it had to be revoked, say so. You do not want to say either of the things. You do not want to take a stand. It's a very preposterous kind of a situation to be in. Whether the current stand will affect, this stand will affect its standing in the polls, I think it will. It will probably, I'm sure the NC and the PDP will actually make it an issue also, because in the valley, it's BJP is not the principal challenger to the PAGD. It will be the Congress, because Congress has some presence there. So I'm sure regional parties will be taking up this issue in coming days.
Okay, and I have a question coming in from Jitendra Tomar. I have a question coming in from Danish, and he's asking, India isn't holding elections in Kashmir, yet it opposes elections in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. Why this double standard? I think, before I give it to DK, of course, the fact is that India is holding elections in Kashmir, and there's a collection which is currently on, and that is exactly what we are discussing.
In the election, turnouts have been up and down, but over the past couple of decades, if you look at the voter turnout, it has been pretty healthy. And we are opposing election in Kashmir, in POK, because POK is a part of India.
Yeah, and continues to remain a part of India, which is under Pakistan occupation. Well, I have a question from. Okay, I have there are a number of questions. One, Krish Vikram is asking, has BJP brought the discussion from separatism and Pak tilt to 370 and India tilt? I think what he's saying is that earlier, the allegations against...
It was more about Pak bashing, and now it's more about...
And now it is about 370.
Yeah, but of course, like it suits the BJP politically. Because as we have just discussed, how Congress is in a dilemma, what to say, what a stand to take. So BJP would actually love to talk about Article 370 when your principal opposition party doesn't know what a stand to take.
Okay. I have a question coming in from Rahul, and he's asking, what is the view of the security forces as far as elections to be held? I think, Rahul, security forces don't have a view on the elections per se. That's a political process. What the security forces have a view is on the security arrangements. I think the security forces are, as I mentioned earlier, that more number of battalions are being pumped into Jammu and Kashmir, and the security forces have, are confident of ensuring that the election takes off rather peacefully. Of course, there are still concerns of terror activities, of terrorists targeting the candidates as well as voters. And as DK rightly mentioned, these terrorists won't like these elections to happen smoothly. So that remains a challenge. However, I feel...
Snehesh, actually, on behalf of the viewers, let me ask you this question. What's the security scenario in J&K post-August 5 last year? How have things progressed in terms of infiltration, in terms of casualties, in terms of local recruitment? How has it changed over the last 15 months or so?
Well, post the abrogation of the Article 370, I think one big change that has happened is the fact that the Jammu and Kashmir police has become more independent. Now, what used to happen earlier is that whenever there was a crackdown, the political influence used to take place. Certain people were picked up, they were later released because of the political influence. I think the forces now have a much freer, and when I say forces, I mean the army, the JKP as well as the CRPF have now a much freer hand than compared to earlier. I'm not saying that, I'm not getting into whether this, revocation and the removal of the government there is a good step or not. But the fact is that the forces have a much freer hand. And as far as recruitment is concerned, the recruitment has been a concern, the increasing recruitment. But the plus point of the fact is that while many did join the terror ranks, the recruitment level is significantly higher than what was expected. The fact is that many are now turning themselves back in also.
So the level of violence is not that. We do not see any stone pelting or...
So there's no stone pelting in terms of either terror-induced violence, which is TII, how the Secretary of State sees it, that has significantly come down. And as he said, as far as law and order issues are concerned, the kind of stone pelting that used to take place has completely has come down a lot, primarily because the stone pelting and also used to happen because of a lot of political reasons. There was money that was involved. There were parties that were involved in this whole issue. I think with the crackdown on by the NIA and the Enforcement Directorate on a lot of terror funding that was happening in Kashmir, that level of stone pelting has literally vanished, if I would say that. And as far as the infiltration is concerned, the infiltration doesn't really have anything to do with what's happening in Kashmir inside. The infiltration is more of a dynamic that is there at the LOC. And as far as infiltration is concerned, early today itself, while we are discussing this today, early morning at about 4:30 at the toll plaza on the Jammu-Srinagar highway, there was a truck which was stopped for checking, and which led to and there were 4 terrorists hiding in them. There was an encounter in which 4 Jaish-e-Mohammed terrorists who had recently infiltrated from the Samba sector were killed. 11 AK-47s were recovered from them. So the infiltration continues to be a matter of concern. While the anti-infiltration grid has been strengthened at the LC, the Pakistanis are trying to use the IB, that is from the Jammu as well as from the Punjab side, to infiltrate terrorists, and not just terrorists but also arms and ammunition. But I would say that the security, as far as the overall security scenario is concerned, I think it's within the control as of now.
Even on the ground, actually, there is also a growing real is irrevocable now. No matter which party comes to power at the center, it's not going to be changed. There is growing realization. People have accepted it. So now it's about looking forward. What more can they expect? And that's where the DDC polls, and once you have DDCs in place, you have welfare schemes rolling out, you have political stakeholders participating in it. Gradually, people will move beyond Article 370.
Absolutely.
But probably not right now. It will take some time, and that's why I've been repeatedly saying that the center needs to take local political stakeholders on board and help in this process of reconciliation and normalcy, actually.
Absolutely, there is no doubt about the fact that a lot needs to be done to ensure that the people of Kashmir are taken along in the larger the national integration and the national movement itself. Thank you so much, viewers. I hope you found this discussion and views from DK Singh very informative. Do subscribe to the print, because here at the print we believe in non-hyphenated news, which is neither right nor left. What we do here is just pure news. So do subscribe to the print and support us. Thank you for logging in, and do watch our future episodes of the PoliGraph. Thank you so much.